particularly in car brands, there's some people doing really interesting things, like people that work in engineering, product design. They've got loads of stories that people would kill to hear about. Particularly, we do a lot of work with Bentley. They talk a lot about craftsmanship and innovation and all of that. Some of those people that are doing those roles that aren't necessarily on the board or in the C-suite, they have really great stories to tell.
The automotive sector is, as a sector across the main brands, broadly better than average in terms of customer satisfaction.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Women in the Driving Seat, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the fantastic women working in the automotive industry. This week, we're going to be talking about LinkedIn and customer service, not necessarily together, but who knows. I'm joined by Jo Coulson, CEO of the Institute of Customer Service, and Michelle Davis, who heads up automotive at LinkedIn. Before we get started, we're going to look at our guest bios. Jo Coulson. Jo joined the Institute as CEO in 2009. Since then, she has driven membership growth and established the UK Customer Satisfaction Index as the country's most trusted indicator of consumer satisfaction. She brings a wealth of experience from the commercial sector, holding director roles in financial services, brand and business consulting, as well as policy development and research for City and Guilds and the Chartered Management Institute. Away from work, Jo is a keen walker and traveller. Michelle Davis. Michelle heads up the automotive category for LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, and for the past 5 years, she has been working with enterprise OEMs to help them get the most out of the platform. Prior to LinkedIn, she crossed paths with me at Autotrader Towers and held senior marketing roles at Fiat, Chrysler and Volkswagen Group. A proud northerner, she is passionate about social mobility and supporting other women. She lives outside of London with her husband and is constantly cooking or eating. Yes, nice. Thank you very much for both coming in today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. First question, as ever, is what's been going on in your week? What plates have you been spinning? What balls have you been dropping? Jo, let's come to you first.
Well, you've chosen a really good week for us to do this, because it sounds like I'm having a really exciting week, which I am. So yesterday marked our big annual conference. So we have over 400 people in the room, across lots of different industry sectors, talking about everything that is business and customer experience. So it was a great day because you get some real opportunity to meet real people and hear about what their real experiences are. And then in the evening, we had our massive awards dinner. So we have 20 awards to celebrate and recognise the best of the best in terms of customer service. So nearly 1,000 of us, all crammed into a very hot and very cramped room, I've got to be honest, but it was
in
a
London,
great...
or?
Yes, in London.
Right.
Yeah, so it was okay. So forgive me, Erin, if I'm not completely on my mettle today. I will try my level best.
Do you know what? That is so relevant for this entire podcast. You are typical for our guests and indeed the host of this podcast. So you're warmly welcome, Jo. Michelle, what's been going on in your week?
Again, another busy week, actually. I can't believe we're in March, to be honest. So we've been doing a lot internally. So we have an employee resource group called Women at LinkedIn, which I'm a member of. And I've been driving an initiative which is called Empower Her, which is a kind of networking initiative designed to help women within LinkedIn kind of network with one another, but people that are sitting in different markets in different business areas. So I've been facilitating sessions this week, enabling people to get together, have discussions. So this particular context was around careers. So we were sharing, our career paths and how varied they all are, and kind of what some of our ambitions are, and guidance and advice. And it's been really nice to kind of see and hear some of those stories. So yeah, that's been kind of my main focus.
What about home life? How often do you have to be in the office?
We're in the office 2 days a week on average. It really depends what's happening. As you know, some weeks you're kind of quite quiet, other weeks you're in every day. From a personal standpoint, very much about the pancakes last night.
Yes.
The pistachio cream was out.
Oh, that's posh.
Yeah, that's the kind of...
None of your lemon and sugar for you.
No. We had the pistachio cream, which was lovely. And then other than that, flat pack furniture has been my life this week as well.
Mine too. I built a whole bookcase for my son. I'd like that noted on this podcast on my own.
Fine, well
with
done.
just an Allen key. Do you know what it was? I saw there were no washers involved because they throw me. I never know where they're meant to go.
How many they are and what the size. Yeah.
Outside or inside, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Jo, your job is really all about customer service. What I mean, what does that mean? What are the pillars of good customer service? So I always think customer service, the Americans are good at it, the British not so much.
Okay, so absolutely critical to the UK economy. So 80% of our GDP in the UK is service related. So we better be good at it. And I think sometimes it's definitely been a bit of an unsung hero. You mentioned, Erin, the UK Customer Satisfaction Index, and we've been doing that since 2009. And it's like a barometer of customer satisfaction. We do 13 different industry sectors, and we look at what is good, who's doing well and where there are opportunities for improvement. And what is interesting, what makes good customer service, which is what your question was, I think it's a combination of things, but clearly there's the absolute hygiene factors, doing what you said you were going to do. So does the product or the service meet what I expected it to be? Are the people well trained, knowledgeable, friendly, approachable, all of those kind of good stuff? If there's a complaint, how do you make me feel through that complaint? And are you responsive? Does the website and the virtual and the physical experience match what my expectations would be? All of those are kind of the hygiene factors of customer service. But what makes brilliant customer service, and we were seeing this more and more, are the softer, more intangible things. So, do I trust this organisation? Do I think that this organisation puts my interests at their heart of what they're doing? Do they design the customer experience around me? Do I think it's an ethical and well-run organisation?
I bet the ethical side of it is becoming bigger and bigger.
Huge, absolutely. And we're starting to see that real trend. And particularly, and I never get through any conversation without talking about AI, so the balance between human interface and AI. And I am really clear about this. You need both. And I think in today's world we are going to be, but it's a different set of skills, and we need to be able to make sure that we do that. So it's a great job, Erin. I work with all sorts of different businesses. It's a real privilege, actually, because you get insight into lots of different boards, lots of different organisations. And believe it or not, there are some organisations that are getting it right and are really trying to make that difference and do the right thing. Above all, for me, customer experience, customer service is the board doing the right thing.
Yeah, right. Yes. And I imagine there's a very hardcore link between good levels of customer service and good levels of profit.
Totally, absolutely. So again, the Institute's done quite a lot of research on this, and what you see for those organisations with above average customer satisfaction over a sustained period, it's not okay just to be in and out, but over a sustained period, they will get EBITDA profitability of 10 percentage points higher, revenue of 7% higher, and twice the level of productivity in terms of employee engagement and output, discretionary effort.
Yeah.
So absolutely, going back to the point about linking to the UK economy, service is a bedrock for us, and we need to be good at it.
Do you see any industries doing it better than any other industries?
Yes, so when you look at industries, retail, it's very fast moving, it's very instant, we can give very quick feedback to that. So the retail sector generally does pretty well. And interestingly, more recently, the banking sector has started to significantly improve. But I think that's because of the use of technology. And none of us probably get that excited about going into a bank or whatever. So being able to use an app that actually enables all the transactions I need to be able to do is definitely more positive than it used to be.
Interesting. Michelle, coming onto LinkedIn, we know we work together at Autotrader, and Autotrader is as much a tech business.
Yeah.
It's digital marketplace. So I suppose in one sense going to LinkedIn wasn't a huge shift. On the other hand, it's a social media platform. How's it been being at LinkedIn?
It's amazing. So it's such a great company because no single day is the same. Every day is completely different. And I think what's so unique about LinkedIn is actually it almost sits in this position between being a social platform and a publisher platform, because we're not really kind of fully fledged in terms of social media. We actually have a lot of publishers that are bringing content to the platform, telling stories and things like that. So we kind of sit in this kind of professional social space in the middle, which is actually really, really interesting. We previously would get very pigeonholed as being a jobs platform and very much B2B focused. But I think, now there's this kind of understanding that the platform's actually quite rich from a content perspective. people are coming to LinkedIn to do loads of different jobs. You know, they could be coming to find their next role. They could be coming to develop themselves, training. We have hours and hours of learning content on the platform. People are coming to LinkedIn to do business, connect with one another, network. You know, we are creating economic opportunity, which is actually a really exciting thing to be a part of, even though, you know, my area within automotive is quite unique. It's nice to have that kind of ladder up into that kind of overall purpose that we have.
Yeah. I mean, I love LinkedIn. It's my number one social media platform. I think partly that's because I'm 46. I'm not a TikToker or I can feel my teenage son's going, oh my God, I can't believe you just said a TikToker. That's such a grandmother. Whatever, I've just proved my point. But LinkedIn works for me. I also, you know, do a little bit of freelance outside of what I do for Autotrader, and it helps you build up all that sort of business and connections. What I've noticed at LinkedIn and what I haven't liked, but having been at LinkedIn recently, I understand the reasoning behind it, and this is going to link in with what Joe's talking about, is that on LinkedIn now, we're starting to see, I feel, far more personal content going on there. And, you know, my bugbear is these posts tend to start, I thought long and hard before posting this, but, you know, my cat died yesterday, and I think, oh, I don't care, talk about jobs. But when I kind of put that to you guys at LinkedIn, like, why is all this personal content infiltrating my beautiful, pristine industry platform? Yeah. You're like, well, because actually people bring their whole selves to work. People bring their personal lives in. It can enrich your skill set. It can, one enriches the other. This whole podcast actually is about the Venn diagram for women, where personal and professional collide and complement each other, and what comes out of that. And my point about what Joe's been saying as well is that there are certain things in your career where you think, well, that's a soft skill set, or that's a really soft thing, customer service, personal lives on LinkedIn. But actually, increasingly, this stuff informs hardcore themes within corporate life, like EBITDA, like promotions, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And we were having this discussion before we came on air, actually, and it's something that, you know, has naturally occurred in terms of the way our members are using the platform. So it wasn't, I don't think, a particularly conscious decision. It's just the way that people have been deciding to use LinkedIn. And actually now you'll find there's more and more video on LinkedIn, the kind of like the real style of video, which is probably going to accelerate that even more. I think it's nice that people are able to kind of bring some of these kind of like softer themes through into the platform, because like you say, it reflects everyday life. And actually what we talk a lot about in terms of empowering women and all of that is kind of breaking down barriers, building confidence. And if you feel like you know a little bit more about somebody personally, then, you know, that's the way to do that. I work quite a lot with C-suite leaders of organisations, helping them have a presence on the platform. And we actually often encourage them to just, you know, lift the lid a little bit on some of their personal lives. And it doesn't have to be super personal. It can just be passion points that they have. You know, they may be involved in some sort of charity work or, you know, other passions, sport, whatever it might be. But we do encourage them to kind of, you know, open up to some of that, because it enables them to present themselves as being real people and a bit more human. And, you know, therefore people are going to kind of think what they are having to say is a lot more authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you're saying, Michelle, because I'm definitely with yourself, Erin. My immediate thing is, why am I listening or seeing all of this very personal stuff? But I think you're right, Michelle. Work now. You know, we are encouraged, and I think there's a big part, an important part of that, to bring your whole self. And if you don't have a sense of, you know, the individual in that whole self, then I think people make wrong decisions or make stereotypical statements or anything else. So I can definitely see why that might enrich it and develop it. And of course, too, some of these subjects that we're talking about have been viewed as softer, but actually they do have, you know, the employee engagement piece is enormous. That link between employee engagement, customer satisfaction and financial return or productivity is huge in organisations.
Yeah. It's like my mate Belinda Palmer, who wrote the Empathy Era, great booklet, saying, you know, empathy until well, you know, certainly 10 years ago was just dismissed by boards as a kind of soft skill that was a nice to have, if that. And now there's such an obvious line between that and profitability of the company and the bottom line. Boards are having to build it into what they're doing.
Yeah, and encourages, you know, diverse thinking, a richness of of content that is really important. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't live in vacuums anymore. I think that's the other thing. Life is more complex.
Yeah.
There's more going on for us all. So the more that we can feel, and it's really weird, isn't it? We're living in a much more tech-driven world, and yet we don't feel quite so connected.
Yeah.
So when you've actually got real connection, that's what makes brilliant service, actually, connection. Feeling connected to that brand, to that organisation, having someone think, actually, they get me, they understand me.
And that doesn't have to be face-to-face in person, does
No.
it? You can build great personal connection over, well, social media is a great form of content
That's
for personal
it, yeah.
connection because it allows you to be a little bit more authentic, a little bit more colloquial in your language,
Yeah.
experiment,
Yeah.
bring out more emotion.
Yeah, and actually context is really important because, we often, again, encouraging people to utilise the platform for, thought leadership and speaking about broader topics. If you are going to share some content or share a viewpoint, give your own context to that. Because believe it or not, context is something that AI really struggles to create. AI can churn out loads of great content and responses for us, but it won't give the same level of context to that you as an individual can give. So that's another kind of nice USP that we can keep as human beings.
Yeah.
If we are connecting across platforms like LinkedIn, sharing some of that context in terms of why this is important to you or why you believe this should be X, Y, Z. It's really important.
Sorry, Michelle, but just picking up that point about context. It's interesting. So AI will be able to drive, from a customer point of view, much greater personalisation. That ability to, design the experience around me. But what it won't be able to do is be personal. So there's something around, it was interesting. I had the privilege of having a chat to the CEO of Ocado Retail, and she was saying that, they can now design probably pretty much what we are eating, how we're eating it, what days of the week. But that last bit on whether we decide, well, actually tonight I don't fancy Chinese. I might have eaten Chinese every Wednesday night, but you know what? Because I'm contrary, because I'm human, tonight I'm not going to eat it. So there's that thing around allowing context, but also allowing to still be personal. And I think that's the other aspect of it.
Now, shortly we are going to get on to what everyone wants to know from you, Jo, which is your thoughts about the car industry and car retail. But we're halfway through already, which means it's time for podcast pit stop. This is our quick fire round. Michelle, you can go first.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think so.
TikTok or Instagram?
Instagram.
Salt or pepper?
Salt.
Branded content or display ad?
Branded content.
Sports car or hot hatch?
Sports car.
Manicure or pedicure?
Manicure.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Yeah, no question.
Easy.
Nice. I've had so many guests go, I don't know. This is a quick fire
That
round,
was
my
good,
friend.
It was good, Michelle.
Decisive.
No pressure.
Yeah, Jo, she's set the bar. Are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Consumer or customer?
Customer.
Surrey or Sussex?
Sorry.
Walk or run?
Walk.
Efficiency or excellence?
Excellence.
Retail or hospitality?
Oh, I'm not going to say both, am I?
I
Hospitality.
have had guests that have said both.
Hospitality.
Oh, well done for not sitting on the
Yeah.
fence. Billy Joel or Elton John? And be careful before you answer this because this is close to my heart.
Okay, well, I happen to love both, and I know I'm sitting on the fence again. But if you really force me, Billy Joel.
Oh, yes! Oh, thank you. We can end the podcast there. I mean, that's just... No, don't stop listening. We haven't ended the podcast. Okay. Oh, Jo, you're my new favourite person. Right, back in. By the way, I saw him at Madison Square Gardens for his 75th appearance.
That
It
was
something
pretty special.
Oh. Anyway, the car industry and customer service. I'm not even going to ask if you think we're getting it wrong because we're getting it wrong. I mean, you've only got to look at the high levels of distrust women in particular feel towards retailers and OEMs. Whether it's real or perceived kind of doesn't matter. That's where they are. It's up in the 80% and 90% in terms of general negative sentiment. And we know historically and traditionally women have felt totally disenfranchised from the car buying experience. I know you're not in the car industry, which is why I'm interested in your thoughts. What are your thoughts?
So, actually, if you go back to that UK customer satisfaction index we were talking about, the automotive sector is, as a sector across the main brands, broadly better than average in terms of customer satisfaction, which is interesting. Now, better than average doesn't make it, because the bottom line is that you've got to be super brilliant in order to get those returns that we were talking about. And there's a broad range of performance in the sector. So there are some brands that are absolutely getting this right and would definitely be up there. And there are also organisations that are not. And you see that.
I so want a list of
I'm always asked about that. I'm always asked about the top performing brands.
I won't put you on the spot.
But I think, it's back to what we were saying. What makes a good customer experience, what makes a good connection, is definitely that sense of trust in the brand. Trust is becoming much more important. That sense of actually you're not just selling to me, you are listening to me and understanding it. And it was funny, my husband and I were talking about it when I was very excited about coming on your podcast. And he said to me, will you talk to Erin about the experience you had 10 years ago when I wanted to buy a sports car? And they sold to my husband the whole time. Yeah. And even to a point when I actually asked a question which went along the lines of, do you sell very many of these to women? And he basically said no, but didn't kind of understand why that might be the case. Now, if you fast forward 10 years, I do think that it is improving. But this is a really important purchase, and being excited about the purchase. I remember when I had my first sports car, it was just an amazing emotional connection. So I think where they get it wrong is they don't build enough of that emotional connection to it. That real sense of, this is an important purchase that I've thought long and hard about, and not just the functional things. It's about that emotional connection. So I think that's why it doesn't always land as well.
Do you think building that emotional connection in terms of customer relations and customer service, when does that begin? Because if it only begins the moment that customer walks through the door, cash in hand, ready to go, it's irrelevant.
Totally, Erin. So it begins right at, when I'm searching, when I'm looking on the website, when I am going around any of the dealerships, when I'm the whole kind of experience. I mean, if you talk to one of the brands that does do very well in this, they absolutely care, and they care in the boardroom. And they talk about it. And that's, for me, what makes this different. The CEO actually came and did a podcast with me and obsesses about the service experience and really wants to make sure that is good and thinks through my journey as a customer. What does that feel like? And, there's a lot of stereotypical views, aren't there, about how I'm going to purchase this versus how my husband or a male might purchase. For me, it's about understanding the individual. It doesn't matter whether I'm male or I'm female. What are my particular needs, wants, and am I having a good conversation that can address that?
Yeah, we keep hearing, don't we? I hear from, one of the things I do is host this She's Electric National Roadshow. And one of the things I hear a lot from women, just general members of the public who come along, is that they're tired of walking into a dealership and the person in the dealership saying, what car are you looking for today? They want the person to ask them, what sort of person are you? What does your life look like?
Yeah.
And start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So that you can design that, the experience is designed around you.
Yeah.
Do you need 4 doors? Do you need a hatchback? Do you need, how are you going to be using this?
Yeah.
And then you're having a much more adult to adult and equal conversation somehow as well.
Michelle, automotive, the industry on LinkedIn, how big a player is it as an industry on LinkedIn? Do you look at kind of industries on LinkedIn and who's doing what and who uses the platform, how they use it commercially or post content?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's huge on LinkedIn for 2 reasons primarily. One is that from a retail consumer perspective, our audience tends to be slightly more wealthy, they're more educated. So therefore that kind of audience is quite appealing to automotive advertisers because they want to speak to people that can afford to buy their car. On the more B2B side of things, the fleet side of things, again, we see a lot of activity there because it's quite easy to identify opportunities where you could speak to companies for fleet discussions and things like that of varying sizes, enterprise, huge big deals right the way down to, your butcher, your baker, your florist kind of content and discussion. So we see a lot. It's very broad, it's very varied. As I said earlier, thought leadership is a huge topic that is kind of really, really picking up now, and we do many different content sessions specifically with manufacturers around that, helping them kind of have a voice around things like innovation, electric vehicles, of course, is massive, sustainability even more broadly, also things like D&I, a lot of brands want to talk about their initiatives around that. Again, coming back to that whole softer skill kind of area, a lot want to talk about that. So yeah, it's my job is certainly, super busy, and I don't have enough hours in the day to do all I want to do. So yeah.
And do you find you get equal amounts of engagement from kind of what we call legacy, traditional OEMs, as you do new entrants, small startup, younger brands, or are the latter more kind of digital savvy and LinkedIn savvy?
It really depends. I don't think you could really categorise them in that way. I think where we see teams that are quite sort of engaged users of the platform themselves, then they tend to just really run with things, and we'll work together quite strategically. We'll build out a plan. We'll kind of look ahead to the year ahead and think about what we can do to kind of do really exciting things from a content perspective. So that's kind of where it's most exciting, when I think they really see the benefit in the platform. But it's completely varied depending on the customer and the relation of their business.
Yeah, interesting. I'd never thought about the whole corporate side of posting on LinkedIn and how to build out a content plan, do
absolutely
sorts of content.
So LinkedIn, again, kind of why I say it's not really a social platform, because we have a lot of different formats that are quite unique to LinkedIn. So we have things like articles. So these are kind of long form written pieces, which, is like something you'd find in a magazine years ago, and these are kind of thousands of words that are written, and, good luck trying to get somebody on another channel like TikTok to, engage with something like that. It's quite a unique format. We also have other content like thought leader ads and things like that. So this is the ability where a leader in an organisation can actually promote a post of their own on behalf of the company. So rather than having just, a brand, pushing out their message, it's coming from that individual, which again is adding that more kind of like humanised element to what's there, which is really nice and unique as well.
Do you think as well, it seems to me that just essentially the higher you go up the career ladder, the more followers you get on LinkedIn? So like basically CEOs are always going to have more followers than middle management?
Not necessarily. And actually, I've worked with CEOs that don't even have a profile. So
Really?
And that's kind of really, really sort of beginners kind of territory. So, all of the different brands I work with are all in very different places. So, not every CEO even has a profile, which is, I think, crazy. But actually in that middle management, particularly in car brands, there's some people doing really interesting things, like people that work in engineering, product design. They've got loads of stories that people would kill to hear about.
Yeah.
Particularly, we do a lot of work with Bentley. They talk a lot about craftsmanship and innovation and all of that. Some of those people that are doing those roles that aren't necessarily on the board or in the C-suite, they have really great stories to tell. And actually, coming back to your point about, employee advocacy as well, even, the grad on the grad scheme talking about what it's like to be a grad.
Funnily enough, we've had a Bentley grad
Right,
on this very podcast.
exactly.
She's engineering, and that's super cool.
Wow.
There you go. So there's always somebody that's going to find that kind of content interesting. So, Gen Z is actually our fastest growing demographic on LinkedIn, because people, students, young people, when they're at college and university, are now kind of almost encouraged to create a profile as part of their course to, create that professional brand before they've even got their first job, and adding, volunteering experience and all of that on there. So, everybody at all levels has an interesting viewpoint and can grow followers accordingly.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree, Michelle. I mean, I'm a very bad CEO in terms of my LinkedIn. I'm sitting here squirming in my seat, actually.
Must post when I get home.
Absolutely, I meant to do something. I need to do something. But it is interesting about, as you said, being able to create a much more personalised and connected feel.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I love the concept of the engineers as well, talking about that. Because it's so much more then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jo, do you think that, just coming back to automotive and as an industry and customer relations, it feels to me it's an obvious statement, but unless you've got plenty of women and plenty of men in the industry, you're going to be alienating a huge percentage of your customers, and therefore your customer relations are never going to get beyond a certain point. And to that point, coming back to industries performing well or badly, I'm kind of heartened to hear what you have to say about automotive. It always seems to me, from personal experience and looking at the data, that possibly the other industry that stands alongside automotive, possibly for quite negative customer satisfaction, is finance, because I always think finance is up there with automotive in terms of lack of women, and therefore how could you hope for a good customer experience?
And I think, again, it is interesting. In recent years, we are starting to see some change. It's not fast enough, Erin. And I think you're absolutely right. The boardroom, the diversity in the boardroom is critical to all of this. And but actually the most critical point to this is really understanding who you're here to serve. You know, sometimes organisations, I think, forget that actually without your customer, there is no organisation. And thinking about how you design that experience, how you understand, as you were talking about before, the lifestyle of the people that you are trying to serve is a really, really critical aspect about getting this right. So diversity in the boardroom, definitely. Probably diversity throughout the whole of the engagement chain and the customer journey. You know, you were saying before, I actually might be really interested in the design of the car. I might be interested in the fuel consumption. But it will be dependent on what is really important to me at my time in my lifestyle. You know, and that I think is the bits that we miss sometimes. You're not selling a product. You're selling a dream, or you're selling a solution, or you're selling something that will make someone's life easier, better, enjoyable.
And to that point, I think we've had a lot of discussion, particularly in the past 5 years in the automotive industry, about, is it going to be an omni-channel approach to selling? Is it going to be bricks and mortar? Is it going to be digital first? You know, and a lot of the big consultancy houses 8-9 years ago were saying bricks and mortar is gone, done. Physical retail experience and dealerships are on their way out. Everyone's going to buy online if given the chance, because there's no haggling. The price is the price. You can have your car delivered to your door. Why wouldn't you? But actually, very few people have taken that option. Women especially, actually, as much as they distrust dealers and OEMs, they still want to go in there for the car because it's a really expensive purchase.
Yeah, totally agree. And it is interesting. Obviously, during COVID, online sales generally went up significantly, but they've fallen back. Now, I think what we will be seeing is we're using different channels for different parts of that. So if I'm perhaps in the research stage, then I might actually use mostly online channels. But the thing around locality, and it's quite interesting where you've got a dealership that is local, that they drink in the same pub with you, that's about building that relationship. And I think that does make a really big difference.
Yeah.
So I think the future is omni-channel genuinely. Yeah. But to be cute about realising how we use different channels for the information and the decisions that we make.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about that locality. I remember Anya Hindmarsh saying ages ago, that we know she created that wonderful village retail village within London for her brands, which are incredibly high-end fashion brands. And she said, I don't want any cookie cutter stores out there. And sometimes when I look at the OEMs who are kind of launching, hey, we're in Dubai, we're in New York, and you look at the interior of the dealership and you think it's lovely and sparkly and glossy, but I could be in any city. Yeah. And then if you go in there to talk to a sales guy about a car worth 100, 150, 200 grand, you think, what's the point? They don't know anything about this area. They don't know what our lives look like out here. Therefore, they don't know me. The more local, the better, surely.
Totally. And that has, again, come out of COVID. So, my local community, my family, we've become very much about understanding, health, well-being, and creating better experiences. So it's not just about buying, it's about how am I going to get that serviced? How will that be looked after? The after sales. So the whole part of that journey, and there's definitely a big change. Also, we are much more, we've talked a bit about sustainability, but much more conscious of the impact that we are having.
Yeah.
And, as climate change, becomes even more, challenging, I think we will become more questioning of brands that aren't, really trying to address that.
100%, yeah. Wow, we are pretty much out of time, which means it's time for the last question. Michelle, tips for anyone wanting to come and work at LinkedIn? Because I think LinkedIn is a really good brand at the moment to work for.
Yeah, I think, you need to, I think, use the platform. You'll be surprised how many people kind of don't appreciate all the different features that LinkedIn has, and actually, even within your own profile, there's a lot of different features that you can activate that are actually quite interesting. Things like different volunteering opportunities and things like that you can flag yourself as being open to, and then people can search for you that way. So I would definitely say kind of take a look at the platform, see what others are doing, take inspiration. There's a number of what we call top voices on the platform. These are people that kind of don't just have a large following, but they have a consistent approach to the way that they publish content and the way that they speak about things that are usually kind of offering some kind of enhancement or guidance to people.
Yeah, how do you become a top voice?
Everybody asks me that. Everyone asks me that. It's a kind of bit of a sort of black box in terms of who gets given that. But
do you do anything? Do I do anything, or do you at LinkedIn pick out the people?
It's selected by our editorial team.
Okay.
So it's a blend of criteria. And I think that they only have a certain number at any given time. So kind of observing people like that is a really good way to see kind of best case use of the platform, I think, to kind of see, how others are doing it well. Yeah,
great. And Jo, what about tips for retailers and brands looking to improve their customer service in automotive?
Okay, so I'd go back to very straightforward. Get the basics right. Be crystal clear, have knowledgeable staff, care, show up, do the right thing, and then start to really try and build that whole end-to-end experience and see me as an individual, not as, a person of a certain age that will therefore want to buy this particular brand in this particular way.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what car you want to buy next? So,
Absolutely.
Thank you both very much. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you to everyone for listening. Please follow and subscribe and share, and watch out for more episodes.